Good afternoon, this is Carol Kennedy. Thank you for joining our onboard webinar this afternoon. We do have some folks still dialing in, so we're going to give everyone just a couple of minutes and then we will be back. We are just a couple of minutes past the hour, and I think we've given everyone a fair shot at dialing in, so I'm sure folks will continue to trickle in, but thanks again everyone for joining our onboard webinar this afternoon. I'm joined on the line by Ellen Benzine and Brandon Peterson, my colleagues, and again, my name is Carol Kennedy. We will go ahead and provide an overview of our ApplicantStack Onboard system today. Just a start to finish walkthrough of that system. We will be opening up the floor to questions afterwards. Those questions can be anything ApplicantStack. It doesn't have to be specific to Onboard. So we'll ask you to submit those questions via the questions panel. Ellen will be helping me with those questions today, and we will do our best to answer those for you. I did want to mention we have some upcoming webinars that may be of interest. We have a recruit webinar on December 19th. That will be an overview of our recruit applicant tracking system. We also have another Ask Me Anything webinar taking place on November 30th, and that will be covering tasks and events. We also have a Workforce Hub University, a general overview of our other products taking place on November 29th, and we would love to have you for that as well. With that, we'll go ahead and hop in to our system. Everyone should be able to see my screen. And I do have us started out on our recruit applicant tracking side. And bear with me, I do need to flip back over. The reason I want to show you recruit first is anytime we change a candidate to the hired stage, the system will prompt you for a couple of items. So if I go ahead and submit that, you will be asked to choose an onboard workflow that you desire for that hire to go through, and you'll also be prompted for the onboarding manager for that hire. Once you confirm those changes, that will go ahead and send that former candidate, now hire, over into our onboard system. So if we view our hire table, certain information will come over if it's already in ApplicantStack, for example, name, address, email address, and so forth. So I have our hires table here. What I'll do is go ahead and show you the end result. I do want to bring you into a new hire portal. Your hire will receive an email. You can either trigger that manually or automatically, and it will have a link to their portal with a username and a password. And once we show you the portal, we'll go ahead and walk you through how we got there, how we set the system up in our library, and then we'll be sure to review the specifics of how you'll navigate onboard as you get your hire through the hiring process. So for now, we'll go ahead and review the new hire portal. You will have an option to upload a logo. You'll be able to customize the welcome message that is here. You will see your hire's contact information, which can be edited. You'll have an option to upload a photo for that hire's manager so they can put a face with the name. We'll see some general information. We have a supporting document section. So if we have something for the hire to review, for example, a handbook, that would be a pretty good use case for them. You'll have an option to upload that for your hire to review. And coming down to tasks, we can see any item that has been assigned to that hire for completion. Anything crossed off will be marked as complete. And then anything still outstanding will have start task next to it. So let's go ahead and hop into that I-9. Again, this is an example of what your hire would see as they come into the system. Okay, if I scroll down to the appropriate section of the form, anything highlighted in blue, the hire will need to complete. You can see information that is already in the system is automatically populated, so your hire is not having to continuously come back in and re-enter that information. If we come down, once the hire completes their section, we do have an option for you to come in and complete the employer section once you have verified that documentation. And if I come down to the very bottom, we have an option to electronically sign that. We can submit. Let's say I need to go look up my documentation. I can save and finish later, or I can cancel out of that. Okay, so again, under your hire record, we have View Portal. You can see what your hire is going to see. They will receive information how to log into their portal. With that, let's go ahead and hop back into our system, and I'll show you how we got to that point. Your library is going to be very important as you set up your system. You'll see we have a number of items here on the left. We have form templates. These will be your new hire forms that you are assigning for completion electronically. We have an option to import existing forms, so your standard forms, your state tax forms, your federal tax forms. We've got some miscellaneous ones available as well. For example, a direct deposit authorization, a handbook acknowledgement form, and so forth. You will simply check the ones you need and import those into your library. If you have a custom new hire form, you can go ahead and add that form. You will need to have that in PDF. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what that will appear like to you. So we'll have an option to name that form, provide some instructions. You'll indicate, is that a hire only form, employer only, hire then employer? So for example, that I-9 is a good example of that, or employer then hire. So maybe you have an offer letter. You're filling out your section first, and then the hire completes their signature. Coming down, the fields that need to be completed will be highlighted in blue. You have some options over here on the left. So let's say for some reason one field does not pull in that box for you. You can simply click and drag that over onto your form into the appropriate spot. So if we have a date, for example, we can simply drag that over. If you double click on a field, we can do a little bit more with that. We can go ahead and make that field required. Maybe it has to be in a particular format, such as a social security number. We can do some validation around that. So feel free to explore that. And once you have your new hire forms in the system, we can come back to our library. Let's go down to questionnaires. Questionnaires are a little bit less formal. They don't require a formal signature. Maybe you're just gathering some information. So for example, an emergency contact questionnaire. We just need to know who can we contact in the event of an emergency. Or perhaps you want to ask what size uniform can we order for you. So those are a little bit less formal again, just gathering information. You can create a new questionnaire via new questionnaire. Messages, if you are using email or texting, you can set up your templates here. So if you have a standard communication that you are sending, you can create that as a template so you're not having to continuously copy paste into the system. You can simply use that template. You will have the option in your workflow to automatically trigger these communications. But you can see what that message is. We have mail merge codes, and that information will automatically populate for you. You're not having to type that in. So we can pull in their name as an example, their address, and so forth. All these fields here are available to pull in. I am on our welcome email, so we had mentioned they'll get a link to the portal. Username and password were sent in an earlier email. Okay, coming down to tasks, we've got a few different types of tasks that you can use for signing to your hire to an internal user for completion as they are getting onboarded. So we have, for example, a file type task. We can assign that to our hire. That will allow us to have up to 10 files for the hire to review or download. We have a general type task. So perhaps to our hiring manager, we want to assign a task. Please set up a workstation for this individual. We can have an email reminder sent until that gets completed. And then we have the questionnaire type task. So to our hire, we can have a reminder. We need to have that emergency contact information completed. Okay, checklists will allow you to combine tasks and forms into a new hire checklist. So you can think of that as maybe a new hire package. So different scenarios are going to have different requirements. So perhaps by state, perhaps by full-time employment versus part-time employment. There's a lot of different situations that you might have. You can have as many checklists as you need. You'll simply click on Create Checklist. You'll go ahead and drag anything over that is relevant to that situation. So everybody needs the emergency contact information. We all need to review the employee handbook. Everybody needs to fill in your federal tax form, the I-9, and in North Carolina, we need the North Carolina tax form, just as an example. So you can build those out, and we'll show you in just a minute how you can assign those to your hires for completion. We mentioned perhaps uploading an employee handbook. This is our supporting document section. You can simply add that document, and that will be available for your hires to review. We do have a way, if you have one that is specific to one employee and not everybody, you are able to assign that to just that hire. Okay, so just to recap, your library is kind of a polling place for any form, any part of your process that you might use time and time again that's going to save you some time as you are assigning items to your hire. Okay, now that we have everything built out, let's go ahead and walk through the remainder of the system and show you how you'll use those items. Back on our homepage, we have an announcement section. When we have new forms or updated forms, for example, certain states will modify their tax forms at the end of the year. That will be announced here as an example. We mentioned our upcoming webinars. Those should be listed in your announcement section with a link to register. We have a tasks summary, so any incomplete tasks assigned to you. So I have a task to order a uniform for John. I also need to complete the W-4 for George. So that will show your user kind of a ticker of what information they need to go in and complete. We do have a pipeline summary, so you can see how many of your hires are in each stage of your onboarding process. These stages are customizable in your system setup, so you're not limited to these options that appear here. Let's go ahead and hop into our hires. We saw this briefly a little bit earlier, but your hire table will show you which hires are in your process, how many tasks have been completed. So you can think of this as a progress bar. So George has completed 3 of 4. He is 75% complete. You will be able to customize this table. So maybe you want to track when is their review date. Maybe that's 3 months, a year after hire date. You can populate that information. You can go ahead and set values. So any of those fields, you can simply select that information here. So that review date, we have a calendar available. We can simply populate that information. Okay, so very customizable. Maybe you want to track social security number now that they're on board. When does their driver's license expire? Just to give you some thoughts around how to use that. You can see when the hire was created, when they were last modified, what stage of the process they are in, who their manager is, and then we have some options. So for example, if you need to edit, maybe they've moved in order to accept your job, you can come in and modify that information. We'll go ahead and come into John's profile. We saw View Portal just a little bit earlier. Let's go ahead and walk through everything else so we can see the information that came over from Recruit. We do know his email, his address, and so forth. We have an attachment section, so we can go ahead and add an attachment, maybe a photo for a badge, something of that sort. Coming down, any of those tasks and forms that we referenced will be listed here. Anything not complete will be in this red color. Anything completed will be in this greenish bluish color, and then anything pending. So let's say it's a two-part form, that would show up as yellow. We don't have an example of that here, but maybe part one of the I-9 is completed, not part two. That would show us something that's pending. We have an option to view individual forms. You can view PDFs. From there, you can print or download that information. It may look different depending on what browser you're using, but we can see John Nicholas's information, how he completed that form, signature converts to script, and that will be date stamped, so we know when that was completed. If you click on View All Forms, perhaps you want to print a new hire package that will pull up everything into one file for you to save or print that information. We mentioned if you have a one-off supporting document that is specific to that hire, we can simply assign that here, and that will only appear for that hire. We have some historical information. So we have emails that were sent to the hire. We can view details. We have notes that you can take, just jot down, and we have a history section as well. So we can see when I made changes, when forms were completed, and so forth. That is all date and time stamped for you. Let's go ahead and talk about this menu bar on the right. We've touched on a couple of these areas, but let's say if you need to add a hire, you find out about them at 5 o'clock on Friday, they start on Monday, you can go ahead and add a hire. Rather than push them from Recruit, you can add them manually to get them into your onboard system. We do have a couple options to search our hires. We have a quick search available at the top, or a more in-depth search available under search. Okay, that will allow you to search on a variety of different information to find that hire. We can email our hires. The templates are available in your template box here. We can send immediately, we can delay. You'll enter your subject, perhaps attach a document, maybe a benefit summary, something of that sort. Here is our message. We can include questionnaires and forms from that email. Okay, and I'm just going to back it up, just get back to John. We can add a task individually. So perhaps I want to go ahead and assign that task. Please check their paperwork, make sure everything's complete. We can assign that to their manager. And again, we have an option to set an email reminder. I do want to show you assigning that checklist. Let's go ahead and assign that North Carolina checklist to John. And what that will do is assign all of those items that we tied to that North Carolina checklist for completion. Okay, coming back to John's profile, we can add a form individually. We'll just need to select that. So maybe he needs to complete that. Maybe there's a different form he needs to complete down the road. You can add those as a one-off. We can print John's information if we want. I wouldn't recommend deleting, but that is an option. Let's say John didn't come on board and we just want to keep everything neat and tidy. We certainly have the option to do that. That is a good review of our hire process. Let's go ahead and hop over to emails. This will show you any emails that have been sent or received in your system. We have some filters available at the top, but you can preview and see all activity. Let's come over to our tasks. So I have opened up these filters that will show me everything that's not complete everything that is complete. So I can come in if I know that Mark is starting pretty quickly. I see that there is a task that's not completed. I can go ahead and follow up on that just to make sure everything is wrapped up before they come on board. We've already covered the library, so we're going to hop over to reports. We do have the option for you to report on new hire information. We will cover this briefly. If you have a specific report that you are looking to pull and you're having some trouble doing that, our technical support team can help you. We would just ask that you submit a ticket with maybe a sample file of what fields you are looking for. But we'll just briefly go over this. We want to see hire information in detail. So from the hire field, we're going to pull over hire name, first name, last name, email address. From the I-9 form, maybe I want to pull in date of birth would be an option. And then from the tax form, maybe we want to pull in any information that's available there, maybe social security number. So any field in the system, fields from forms, you are able to pull those into a report. We have filters available, so maybe you want to filter based on hire date. I just want to see the last year of hire information. That is available for you to create your own custom report. You also have an option to export that information out of the system into CSV once that report is created. One more area to talk about. In our setup, we have the option for you to configure your system. So we mentioned triggering an email at a stage change to automatically send out that welcome email. Just as an example, let's come into our workflow. This will show us by stage what is going to happen. So for example, when the hire comes in new, we've got some action buttons that are available. Once the hire is changed to paperwork in progress, perhaps a checklist is triggered or an email. We can simply come in and edit that workflow stage, and we can go ahead and indicate what we want to happen. Maybe you want a notification to go out to a particular user so that they're aware that that hire is now in this stage. Okay, our hire fields, we mentioned that hire table. Maybe we now want to track date of birth, social security number. This is where you will go ahead and create those fields. It will walk you through that process. Do you want that to be just a text box? Do you want it to be a calendar picker from a date option standpoint? Do we want to see that on our hire table or not? And so forth. So that will walk you through creating that information. And we mentioned your stages are customizable. We have some sample ones in there for you. Feel free to use those or customize your own. And lastly, under our settings, we mentioned you have the option to upload a logo to the top of your hire portal. We can also customize the portal instructions. So welcome to the company. We're excited to have you. You can modify that, upload your logo, and align that left, center, or right. That's really our onboard system from start to finish. So again, that allows you to sign new hire forms for completion electronically, as well as tasks to your internal team, to your hires for completion to get them onboarded. And with that, we'll open up the floor to questions. I think we have some that have come in already.
Yep, we sure do, Carol. I'm going to hop in. That was a great overview of ApplicantStack onboarding. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so before we start reviewing the questions, we had an Ask Me Anything hour last Thursday, and quite a few customers were interested in the VEVRA and the CC305 questionnaires in Recruit. Do you mind just sharing how to import those forms in ApplicantStack onboarding, just in case those folks might be interested in asking new hires to submit those forms in onboarding?
Sure. If you come to library and import, we have got the Bever here and the CC305 here. So you can go ahead, check those off, click on import, that will add it to your library, and that will be available.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with some questions. The first question is this a general onboarding webinar with multiple companies? It sure is. So these webinars are accessible to all of our ApplicantStack customers. Ask Me Anything hours, as well as product webinars, this being an onboard webinar, but recruit webinars as well. All right, Carol, next question. I jumped in and answered that. I hope that was okay with you. I got carried away there. Okay. I noticed in the library and onboarding and recruitment, the archive option on the side panel can be selected for some, but not all items. For example, onboarding, form templates, and questionnaires. And I'm wondering, will that archive option become available for messages or checklists anytime in the future?
So here is that archive option that we are talking about. So for messages and for checklists, I'm not sure why the system was designed that way, to have that archive option or available or not available, but I certainly see where you're coming from. It's not here. So that may be something we could suggest for our product team. If you would like to go ahead and submit a support ticket via the orange question mark in the upper right, that can be a feature request that we can take a look at.
All right, thank you, Carol. Next question is, for the preloaded forms like I-9, W-4, where do you suggest putting the file uploads?
Okay. So from an HR standpoint, I would certainly check with your HR team, your legal team on where that information should be kept. We try not to consult on those matters, but the I-9, you may or may not want to keep that separate from the employee file, or at least the documentation of, personal information. But the information that you keep in ApplicantStack will stay in ApplicantStack and be available to view electronically. But as far as, where to keep those items, again, we would really defer to your HR or legal team on where to keep that information.
Excellent. Thanks, Carol. Next question. Will the replay of this webinar be available?
Yeah, so we typically will send out a recording of the webinar afterwards. That should come from our marketing team. So we will make a note to make sure that goes out.
Excellent. That sounds good. Oh, you got a thank you from Victoria.
Fantastic.
Glad to see you're here again, Victoria. Next question. Is text formatting available? Everything is squished together, and it would be nice to be able to enter lines to separate.
Right, that may be a restriction of your carrier. I'm not sure if you have a template and you modify it. That could be an ApplicantStack question, that could be a carrier question, so it's really hard to say where that's happening. So if you put in period, space, and it's just kind of jumbling it together, we may need to get our tech support team involved in that to see what's happening there. So if you could maybe provide a more specific example for us to look at, our support team can look into that a little bit further for
you. Okay. Next question, Carol, is if an import form is not in our library, do we just submit a ticket?
Okay, so if it's not in the library, we keep up to date the standard forms, state tax forms, federal tax forms, and so forth. If it's not there, you can create your own. It would be a custom form in that case. So you would simply come to your library to form templates, add that form, and then you can create your own custom form. If it's something that you think should be, standardly available, perhaps it's just not in your account for some reason, our support team can look at that for you.
All right, sounds good, Carol. Let's go to the next question. This is from Jerry. Is there a way to have the new employee upload a photo of a document? For example, their driver's license.
Yep, there's a few different ways to do that. So we can go ahead and they can email it to you, and then under the hire record, you can simply add that attachment. The other option is to send them an email and ask them to attach it to that email. When they respond, it should come into their hire profile. And the last option, I believe, if you create a file type questionnaire, let's go ahead, or is it a task? You can create a file type question, and then that will give them an option to upload that information. Let's add a question, a file type question. You could say, please attach a copy of a photo of your document. And then once you build that questionnaire, you can send it to them. They will upload that information into the system. So a few different ways to do the same thing.
And if you embed, I'm just going to embellish a little bit, Carol, and if you embed that questionnaire into a task can be included in a checklist, and then you assign the checklist to your new hire, and that question is part of that checklist as well.
Sure. Thanks, Ellen.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got another thank you from Victoria. Next question, Stephen asks, is there a way to export the questionnaires as a PDF file instead of CSV?
Okay, let's go ahead and take a quick peek. So let's go into John Nicholas. Hopefully he's got a questionnaire completed. Completed questionnaire, we can view that, we can print. So let's go ahead and print that information. We should be able to save that as a PDF. So if you Control P and then save as PDF.
Excellent. I hope that answers your question, Stephen. And Carol, good job doing that on the fly. As we always say to everybody on this call, you as ApplicantStack users, and I know I've used this term before, keep us fresh. And that is really great because, again, you all use the software. These questions are excellent for us to expand our knowledge as well. All right, Monica asks, we currently use ApplicantStack for our applications. However, we have never used the onboarding portion. How do the new employees access the new hire documentation for them to complete them? What is the process? So Carol, you might have already shown this, but maybe review access to the onboarding portal for Monica?
Sure. So you mentioned you're not using the onboarding portion. So you will need to push that individual over into the onboard system. And from there, you'll want to go ahead and either manually trigger that welcome email to the hire. So we will go ahead and email our hire. We will send that welcome email, welcome to the hiring process. They will get a link to their portal, username and password. And then you will simply add checklist, add task, add forms to that hire. And then once we come into that hire's profile, if we navigate to view portal, that will show us what your hire will see. So all the tasks and forms that you have assigned them will come here to the bottom for them to start that and complete that. So for example, emergency contact name, phone number, email, we can go ahead, complete that, and submit that information.
All right, Monica. And then just to add to that, Monica, you have access to the Help Center. And Carol, do you mind clicking on the access the question mark to the help center because there's a lot of information on onboarding that Monica might want to refer to in her own
Sure.
time.
Yeah, so let's click on that. We have two things. We have a help center and we have ask a question. So ask a question, we'll get you in touch with our support team. If you have a question, help center, let's go ahead and search for getting started. And we do have an onboard getting started guide and video for you. So feel free to review those materials. That will help you get started.
Excellent. Next question is from Tammy. Is it possible to increase the amount of characters allowed in candidate fields?
That, not from your end. That would be something our support team would need to look at for you, or our dev team. If there is a limit there, I'm not sure if that's something that would be able to be increased for you. But if you want to put in a quick support ticket, that would be a great feature request for our team to take a look at. If you're running out of room, that would be something that would be great for us to know about.
We love feature requests.
We do.
All right, we have more questions, Carol. Next one is, when do you move an applicant in between orientation and hired? Should I wait until orientation has been completed before I move the applicant to hired? In my franchise, first day of orientation is hired.
Okay. Brandon, that might be a question for you. Maybe you're a little bit more familiar with that process, but it's really up to you and your process. At what point you consider somebody hired and want to put them into that stage. Once they are in a inactive stage, so if you have hired indicated as inactive, they may lose access to their portal, would be the only thing I think I would want to caution you on.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little more. I think the name hired stage on the recruit side can sometimes be confusing for certain businesses depending on how their process works. So a lot of businesses will they don't want to count somebody as legally hired until they've actually shown up to orientation. And so there's a hesitation or a confusion. Why would I put them into hired when they're not truly hired? So I would just invite you to maybe abandon, just let go of the naming scheme maybe. We can change the names of the stages if that's helpful for your process. But just know that the title hired in the recruiting side it's just a stage name, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're legally hired. It just means that we're pushing them over to onboarding. So hopefully that helps with that.
All right, Brandon, thank you. Next question. Sometimes on the recruiting side, we will need to edit a completed questionnaire, and it will not submit after editing. Is there a certain process that must be followed?
I'm thinking this through.
I am too.
Let's go back to recruit and take a quick peek. Yeah, I'm thinking sometimes if there is a questionnaire and it's already been completed, making modifications to that may, for example, if you delete a question, it may impact something down the line. So there may be some restrictions in the system, and that's why. Let's take a peek at a candidate and see if we can't figure that out. And I'm wondering if this is a questionnaire that the candidate is submitting or your team is submitting. That would be another question. I think we may need to take that question offline and get a specific example from you for us to take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
For example, here is an interview evaluation form. Let's try to edit that and see what happens. So I'm going to change one answer. I will submit that and see if I can trigger that error. It looks like that one went through. So we may need a specific example from you. And so we can take a deeper dive into that.
Yeah, and the best way, Tammy, would be to create a technical support ticket. And as Carol mentioned, please let us know what the name of the questionnaire is and the steps that you're taking. And that will give our technical support reps information to do a little research. All right, next question, Carol. Is there a way to import bulk information to applicants' profiles? For example, pay rate, start date, end date, etc.
Okay, so I'm thinking this is on the onboard side. We already have the onboard, or at least the hires in the onboard process. Pay rate, start date, you can change that on an individual level. Obviously, it's going to be different for everybody. But as far as a bulk import, we would probably need to look at our professional services team getting involved to do that. So with a spreadsheet, they would need to map certain fields over. That would be a custom service that would be quoted. Ellen, does that sound right to you?
It does. And I can look at the question, and I know you're listening to me read the question, but that's exactly how I would interpret it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Brianna, we would need the information you wanted to import in CSV formatted file like Excel, and then we get a quote for the cost to import that information in bulk for you. All right, Carol, you got a thank you.
You can help me by not drawing on the couch. You drew on the couch with the red.
Brandon, you're on.
Sorry.
Yep. We got a follow-up question. And Carol, that was after a thank you. This is from Stephen again. I was speaking more specifically to the export feature. It exports the forms as PDF, but the questionnaires always come across as CSV.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is clarification on the prior question. Hang on, there's just a little bit more, Carol. So is there not a way to export them as a group into individual PDF files?
Right. So anything that was forms will come out as PDF. Questionnaires are more fields in the system than an actual form. So that is the system design. It will come out as a CSV file. The forms will come out as PDF. Anything else will come out in CSV. Right. So that option to Control P and print, I think, is the best option if you do need it to come out as a PDF.
Yep, I would agree. Carol, you got another thank you from Monica. Next question is, we currently use ADP Workforce Now for onboarding. Can this be imported?
Okay, we'll have your account manager follow up with you on that question, but we will be back in touch on that.
Perfect. All right. Wow, more thank yous. And this might be, oh, this is a little variation of a prior question, Carol. Is there a way to bulk import form templates? So the prior question was bulk import of hire or candidate information. This one has to do with bulk import of form templates.
Sure. I believe that would be something that would also need to be quoted if you need our assistance in creating those on your behalf. So we would need to see a sample file of a finalized form. So future changes may incur additional charges. So if you have just too many, or that would be something we could take a look at.
Mm-hmm. And again, you can always import your forms, but if you want us to look at it, there would be a fee to do so. All right. I think, well, I know that's the last question, unless there's going to be any last, whoa, I spoke too fast. All right. What does the fee for your help with forms cost?
Right, it's really going to depend on complexity of the form, layout, how many fields there are. So that would be something we would really need to take a look at and evaluate to be able to even give you a ballpark on that.
Mm-hmm. All right. And it looks like that. Oh, Jerry's asking for an estimate or a range. Yeah, as Carol said, Jerry, it all depends on how many fields there are in a form, how many pages there are that make up the form. So the best thing to do, please, would be to submit a ticket, include the form in question, and either your account manager will take that question and get you a quote, or it will be assigned to our professional services group. So again, it's very dependent on length of, okay, Jerry's saying thank you. So you're welcome, and just a little bit hesitant to give you a range based on, again, the complexity of the form, the number of the fields, etc. All right, Carol. All right, I'm getting another thank you. Looks like people are dropping off, so I think we're winding down a bit. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, once again, was that Workforce University webinar series that is on the 29th of November. Carol, you had mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
And just as a little overview, the webinar is going to focus on time tracking and scheduling and hiring and recruiting, all within our Workforce Hub platform, which is the next generation of our product line. So it'll be an overview of our Workforce Hub products and then a live question and answer session after. So please don't forget those links that Lauren from marketing dropped in the chat, and you can certainly register for any and all of those webinars.
Okay, thank you, Ella, for that additional information.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. And
Okay.
I'll just pass the baton back to you, Carol.
All right, so thank you everyone again for your time this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you in the future for our Ask Me Anything and webinars. So thank you again, everyone. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Carol. All right, bye-bye.